Ford had some great ideas about standardization and efficient production, but these same strengths revealed some vulnerabilities. Ford just wasn't very flexible. But as long as he didn't have to be, all was well and good. Then along came General Motors, which started offering cars in lots of different colors, and which even began bringing out new and different models every single year. Suddenly Ford, which had been making the rules, discovered that the rules had changed. The competition had changed the shape of the playing field. Ford's success had been attained by limiting options and minimizing complications, but now there was immediately a need for adaptability and change. Despite its early lead in the car industry, Ford was now forced to play catch-up, and it took nearly 70 years. That's what happens when rigidity and narrow thinking runs into flexibility and creative innovation. Sometimes in the late afternoon when the sun is setting and I look out at the flow of traffic on our great interstate highway system, with the television picking up the 5 o'clock news of the world via satellite, and the telephone answering machine taking the calls, and supper cooking in the microwave oven, I like to reflect on how much the world has changed over the past 50 years. Microcomputers, supersonic passenger planes, men walking on the moon, Israel and Egypt at peace, the collapse of communism, fax machines, video conferencing, and these are just a few changes I've seen in my lifetime. My parents lived at the beginning of this century and had to witness far greater changes even than I have. They saw the United States go from 38 to 50 states, saw the horse and buggy replaced by the automobile, saw rail travel replaced by airplane travel, saw the candle and oil lamp give way to electricity in every home, and indoor plumbing, and the telephone, and radio, and television. It must have been like being born on one planet, and while completely wide awake and going about their daily business, being effortlessly transported by some friendly alien to an entirely different and strange world. They were born in an age of the telegraph and railroad and steamship, and they saw the birth of the atomic age. Instead of fearing wild Indians, they learned that the entire human race could be wiped out by a single finger pushing the wrong button. But perhaps I am not giving my parents enough credit. It's true they saw tremendous changes, and the world of 1950 compared to the world at the start of the 20th century must have looked like a science fiction dream of the future come true. But not the way anybody would have predicted. My parents not only lived with these tremendous changes, they managed to thrive with them. They brought electricity into their home and change into their lives. They grew with the times. They welcomed the new. They did not cling rigidly to the old ways, to the world they grew up with, but they were flexible and put down deep roots and flourished. They were not frightened or paralyzed by the terrible promise of the powers unlocked by atomic energy. They believed in the good as well as in the terrible. They knew human nature and the will to survive. They often told me when I was a little boy not to be frightened by all the big claims made by people in the world, because the human race was capable and adaptable, and the will to survive was stronger than the will of any man or the power of any machine. A strong character is not a rigid character. In fact, exactly the opposite is true. Although it's important to be firm when you know something is right and to maintain that right position even when the crowd is going against you and wants to put you down, it's also important for a person to remember that no person is God. Nobody is infallible or invincible. Sometimes when the tide has run against you for a long time, it may be that what you held as a certainty was in fact not true in the light of overwhelming circumstances. It's not only right, it's also smart to be able to see more than one way to accomplish a task. It's wise to see more than one solution to any problem. It's a good skill to see things as someone else might see them. Because when the plan that served you so well for so long doesn't work anymore, then it's time to find another way. It's time to bend. It's time to move on, to change, to compromise, to talk, or you'll risk snapping like a dead branch in a stiff breeze. When it comes to lasting a long time, to standing tall and being strong, but knowing when to bend, the trees have a lot to teach us. I don't know if you have ever had first-hand experience of the tremendous destructive power of tropical force storms. I've experienced a hurricane and had a chance to witness close up and personal what a combination of wind and water can do to everything that stands in its path. The rain fell so long and hard that it completely soaked the ground and loosened the roots of even the tallest trees. At the same time, the wind blew with such force that century-old trees, tall and hard and strong, were blown over like so many toy soldiers standing on parade knocked down by a toddler at play. However, the enormous willows, some standing tall as a house and covering what would be an entire lot in some parts of the city, lithe and flexible, and bending and bowing gracefully to the slightest breeze or to the mightiest gust, weathered the heavy blows of the storm. They were almost the only large objects left standing after the air had cleared. Not only were tall trees and power poles and seawalls crushed by the storm, houses built to stand up under normal circumstances collapsed and their roofs were carried off in one piece and blown clear into the next county. Everything that tried to oppose the storm's fury was damaged or destroyed. Everything that gave way, that was strong yet flexible, survived. Maybe some of you remember playing the game of scissors, stone, and paper when you were kids. You know, make a fist and count to 3. At 3, put out a flat hand, paper, 2 fingers, scissors, or keep the fist stone. In the game, scissors cut paper, paper covers stone, and stone breaks scissors. Whoever put out the winning object got a point. The best strategy was not to stick to one thing. You had to try and guess what your opponent would offer, and turn your fist into the thing that would defeat your opponent's scissors, stone, or paper. This game teaches a child to think about the nature of materials, how something can be strong or appropriate in one situation and yet be the wrong tool, a losing proposition in another. It also teaches a child to vary his approach, to be flexible, so that his opponent can't anticipate what he's going to do, and recognize that even as you are trying to outsmart the other guy is also trying to outsmart you. It remains to be seen how the great changes we are seeing right now in our own day, the laptop computer and the rise of the internet, the prospect of scheduled flights on the space shuttle, and the falling away of international boundaries to trade, the rise of nations in the Pacific Rim, and the apparent decline of the old European powers, it remains to be seen how these changes will affect our own lives and the lives of our children. You see, the nature of change is such that these things which today look so large and important may turn out to be mere flashes in the historical pan. There may be something else we haven't even thought about. It could be something as obscure as a population explosion among virus-resistant rabbits in Australia. That will be the key element in global changes we can neither anticipate nor even imagine. This has often happened throughout history. That's a key point, of course. That's why all our best-laid plans do sometimes go astray. It's entirely possible Possible and even likely that nothing will ever turn out as we expect. And so no matter how much we prepare for one turn of fate, something will sneak up from the blind side when we're least expecting to be interrupted at our accustomed rounds. When that time comes, as it will, the people who survive and even triumph over the unanticipated will be people who are ready to adapt. They will bend in the first gust. They will step out of the path of the charging bull. They will pivot while holding their place in the scheme of things. They will step back and let something else bear the brunt of impact. I don't really think it's less important or more important today to be open to change and flexible in adapting to it than it has been in the past. It's always been important to be flexible and far-sighted, anticipating whenever we can, and when we can't anticipate, being prepared for all possibilities.